Welcome to my channel. Make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, and share this video with your friends and family. So Deion Sanders got mad that in the 2023 NFL Draft, out of 31 teams, only one team drafted an HBCU player, which is Isaiah Bolden, who was the only HBCU player drafted in 2023. Now keep in mind that Isaiah Bolden did transfer to Jackson State from Florida State. Now here's the thing, Deion, stop blaming the NFL. Maybe the talent at the HBCU is just not that good. Yeah, I said it. Maybe the talent at the HBCU is just not that good this particular season. Hell, most D1 athletes that are starting do not make it to the NFL. For example, look at a team like Clemson. They had 6 players get drafted. Now, some of y'all might say, yeah, that's a good amount. But guess what? Guys, keep in mind, in college football, you're allowed to have up to 105 players on a roster. Another school, like Florida State, which Isaiah Bolden transferred from, it only had 1 player drafted. Look at the Sun Belt Conference, which has D1 players who are considered to have more talent than HBCU players. Guess what? There's only like 9 players from the Sun Belt Conference that got drafted. What I'm trying to say is that it's hard, period, to make it to the NFL, whether you're a D1 athlete at a big university or if you're at a HBCU. The NFL has always drafted players from the HBCU. Some of the star players that came from the HBCUs include Jerry Rice, Walter Payton, Doug Williams, Michael Strahan, and the list goes on and on. In the 2022 NFL Draft, there was actually 2 players from HBCUs that were drafted, and one of them came from Jackson State. Now guys, keep in mind, most players that get drafted, that doesn't mean they're going to be on the roster come opening day. The average NFL career is only like 3 years. Deion needs to stop making it seem like the NFL hates HBCUs. They just did not find any talent this season worthy of being drafted. Just like with a lot of schools, just like with a lot of conferences, just like the fact that most players on D1 scholarships are not going to make it to the NFL. And most players that get drafted in the NFL draft are not going to stay in the NFL. Check this out. From the 2020 NFL draft, out of the first round picks, only 12 of them are going to get their 5th year option picked up. That means only 12 players out of the 32 that were selected in the first round of the 2020 NFL draft are considered worthy of having their 5th year option picked up. The teams feel like the rest are not that good. It's hard, period, to make it in the NFL, and it's even harder to stay in the NFL. Making it to the NFL is very challenging and competitive. Every year, thousands of talented college players across the country that aspire to become professional players, but only a tiny fraction of them will ever make it to the NFL, and even a smaller percentage will even stay for more than 3 years. You have a league where only 32 teams are in the league. Each team has a limited number of roster spots. With so many players vying for a limited number of positions, the competition is fierce. College football itself is very competitive. There's hundreds of college football programs around the country, and many of them produce highly talented players who are competing for a limited number of opportunities at the next level. Now when it comes to HBCUs, like I mentioned to you guys, they have always drafted players and have drafted them way before Deion Sanders was ever a coach. Like I showed you guys, Walter Payton, Jerry Rice, Michael Strahan. I mean, yes, let's be real. Recently, yes, the number of HBCU players did decline. Part of the reason is because they feel that HBCUs have fewer resources, less exposure than many of the larger Division I programs. And as a result, the NFL scouts may not have as much information or access to HBCU players as they do on players from larger programs. But despite that, there are still many talented football players who have been drafted each year coming from HBCUs. The smaller the school that you go to, the harder it's going to be to get exposure. That is how it is. You're going to get more exposure playing at Alabama than you're going to get playing at Colorado, which is a Division I school. Or playing at Georgia, you're going to get more exposure than playing at Syracuse, which is also a Division I school. That's how sports has always been. That's how college football has always been. The NFL has launched initiatives like the HBCU Combine, which allows HBCU players to showcase their talent in front of NFL scouts. They have teams and made a concentrated effort to increase their scouting and drafting of HBCU players in recent years. But guys, it just so happened that this particular season, there was no player that the scouts deemed were worthy of being drafted outside of Isaiah Bolden. But it's not that the NFL hates HBCU players. There's a lot of star players in the NFL that came from HBCUs. It's just so hard to make it to the NFL. That's the bottom line. Whether you're at a D1 school, whether you're at a smaller D1 school or a bigger D1 school, it's just harder to make it to the NFL. And let's be real, HBCUs do not give as much exposure as bigger programs, and even the players at the bigger programs, most of them do not get drafted. 6 out of 105 players, that's still a small amount. And let's not even consider how many of them are going to be on a roster opening day. Anyways, guys, let me know what you're thinking. With that being said, I am out.